Boomers are being forced into retirement right now, and most of them never saw it coming. Here's the thing about the corporate game we're all playing. It ends, and the ending looks like this. You're 63, you've been with the company for 27 years, and you get called into HR on a Tuesday morning. They tell you the department is restructuring. You get 3 months severance and a handshake. The music stopped, and suddenly there's no chair for you. I watched this happen to my buddy Frank last year. Frank worked in logistics. Good guy, solid worker, showed up every day for nearly 3 decades. One morning, he's planning his quarterly review. By lunch, he's packing a cardboard box. The company hired 2 kids fresh out of college at half his salary who knew some software he'd never heard of. Frank thought he had 5 more years. The company had other plans. Here's what I'm seeing everywhere around me. Boomers between 61 and 79 are getting quietly pushed out of the workforce. And the scary part isn't that they're leaving. It's that most of them aren't ready. Not financially, not mentally, not at all. I'm going to walk you through exactly why this is happening, show you the system that makes it inevitable, and explain what it means for anyone who thinks they've got time to figure this stuff out later. Think of the job market like a game of musical chairs. Remember that game from childhood? Everyone walks around while the music plays, and when it stops, you scramble for a seat. But here's the corporate version. The music doesn't stop all at once. It stops one person at a time. You just don't know when it's your turn. And unlike the kids game, when your music stops, you don't get to play another round. You're just out. My neighbor Susan found out her music had stopped when she was 61. She worked in customer service for a regional bank. 23 years. Good performance reviews, never missed a deadline. Then the bank installed a chatbot system. Laid off half her department, Susan spent 6 months looking for similar work, sent out maybe 90 applications, got 3 interviews, no offers. Know what the problem was? Every job posting said they wanted someone tech savvy and adaptable to fast-paced environments. That's corporate speak for young and cheap. Now, you might be thinking this is just a few isolated stories. Bad luck. Wrong place, wrong time. Let me give you the numbers. In 2024, boomers still made up 15% of the entire American workforce. 15%. That's millions of people. And right now, we're watching that number drop like a stone. Not because people are happily sailing off into their golden years, because they're being systematically replaced. This is where it gets really interesting. 1 out of 4 people over 59 has nothing saved for retirement. 0. And for those who do have something set aside, the average is under $269,000. You know how long that lasts if you retire at 62 and live to 85? Not long enough, not even close. We're looking at a generation that built the modern economy, worked their entire adult lives, and somehow arrived at the finish line with empty pockets. Let me tell you about 3 forces that are pushing boomers out right now. First, there's age discrimination. I know, it's illegal. But companies don't fire you for being old. They fire you because you're not a culture fit, or because they're going in a different direction, or because they need someone with fresh perspectives. My friend Jerry got this speech from his boss, who was 12 years younger than him. The boss actually used the phrase new energy. Jerry had energy. What he didn't have was a willingness to work for $40,000 a year. The math is simple from the company's perspective. They can pay you $80,000 with your decades of experience, or they can pay someone $35,000 who thinks working 60-hour weeks is normal because they don't have kids yet. Which one do you think wins when the quarterly earnings report is due? Here's a story that'll make this concrete. I know a guy named Robert, worked in middle management at a manufacturing company, 58 years old. Salary was around $92,000. Company hired a consultant who looked at the org chart and said, "Why are we paying this much for this position?" They restructured, eliminated Robert's role, created a new position that was basically the same job with a different title, hired a 31-year-old at $55,000. Robert's trying to find work now. It's been 8 months. He's applied to 47 jobs, gotten 2 interviews. The interviewers keep asking about his experience with software that didn't exist when he started his career. Second force, technology gaps. And look, I'm not saying older workers can't learn technology, but companies assume we can't. Or worse, They assume it'll take too long to train us and we're not worth the investment. When a company looks at two candidates and one is 28 and grew up with smartphones, and one is 62 and learned computers in their 40s, who do you think gets the job? The 28-year-old looks like less risk, less training needed, more years of productivity ahead. I met a woman named Patricia at a coffee shop a few months ago. She overheard me talking about this topic and wanted to share her story. Patricia worked in accounting. Not exciting, but steady, reliable. The firm switched to a new cloud-based system. Patricia struggled with it, not because she was stupid, she just needed more training time than they wanted to give her. They started documenting her mistakes, building a case. 6 months later, they let her go for performance issues. Hired a recent graduate who knew the software already. Patricia is 63 now. She works part-time at a hardware store for $14 an hour and collects Social Security early. She's making about 1/3 of what she used to make. Third force, AI and automation. This one's not even subtle. The jobs that boomers have been doing for decades, customer service, data entry, basic accounting, administrative work, are getting automated. Not just some of them, a lot of them. My own dad lost his job 9 months ago to exactly this. He worked in logistics coordination, scheduled shipments, managed routes. A software system can do that now. Cost the company $12,000 a year instead of his $78,000 salary. The math is brutal. But here's the kicker on all of this. When you lose your job at 62, you don't just face a tough job market, you face an impossible one. Because you're simultaneously too experienced, which means too expensive, and not experienced enough, which means not current with whatever technology has emerged in the last 5 years. You're stuck in this weird middle zone where nobody wants you. Now you're asking yourself, how did an entire generation end up here? These are people who worked their whole lives, paid their taxes, did everything they were supposed to do. How are they arriving at retirement age broke? Let me take you back to understand this. Late boomers, people born between 1956 and 1964, entered the workforce in the late 70s and early 80s. This was right when companies were moving away from pensions. Your parents' generation had pensions. You showed up, did your job, retired at 65, and got a monthly check for life. Simple, predictable, safe. But by the time late boomers started working, that system was dying. Companies switched to 401ks. Know when the 401k became common? 1980s. Know when the Roth IRA was created? 1997. Late boomers were the guinea pigs for this whole do-it-yourself retirement system. And here's the problem. Nobody taught them how to do it. Their parents couldn't because their parents had pensions. There was no YouTube, no easy access to financial education. You had to figure it out yourself or pay someone expensive to help you. A lot of people just didn't figure it out in time. They lost decades of compound interest because they literally didn't know where to start. Then the Great Recession hit in 2008. Late boomers were in their peak earning years, mid to late 40s. This is when you're supposed to be saving aggressively. Instead, they were getting laid off. Their employment rate went from 98% to 80% over a decade. Houses underwater, retirement accounts cut in half. Many of them had to withdraw money early from their 401ks just to cover basic expenses. That money never got replaced. And their income never fully recovered. According to research from Boston College, late boomers averaged household income of $73,000 in their 50s compared to $88,000 for mid-boomers and $114,000 for early boomers. They got hit right when they needed to be accelerating. So now we arrive at today. These workers are getting forced out, and they're not ready. They face a choice, but it's not really a choice. Try to find a new job in a market that doesn't want them, or start taking Social Security early and figure out how to survive on drastically less money. Let me show you what this actually looks like with real numbers. Meet Carol. She's a composite of several people I know, but her situation is very real. Carol is 62. She just got laid off from her job where she made $68,000 a year. She has $73,000 in her 401k. That's it. No pension, no other savings. She tried to find another job for 4 months. Nothing. She's exhausted. So she starts taking Social Security. Here's what happens. If Carol waits until 67, full retirement age, she'd get $1,930 a month, about $23,000 a year. But because she's starting at 62, she only gets $1,342 per month. That's $16,000 a year, locked in for life. She can't undo this decision. But $16,000 isn't enough to live on. So Carol gets a part-time job at a grocery store. $15 an hour, 25 hours a week, that's about $19,500 a year. But here's the trap. Once you start collecting Social Security early, the government caps how much you can earn at $22,300. After that, you get heavily taxed. So Carol is stuck making roughly $38,000 a year, half of what she made before. And she's working a physically demanding job in her 60s with no health benefits because Medicare doesn't start until 65. Let that sink in. Carol worked 40 years, paid into the system, did everything society told her to do. And now she's bagging groceries, hoping her knees hold out until she's 65 and can get Medicare. That's the reality. Now, some people watching this might think, well, she should have saved more. And sure, in a perfect world. But this isn't about individual failure. This is about a system that changed the rules halfway through the game and didn't tell anyone. Boomers were promised one system, got switched to another, weren't taught how it worked, got hit by the worst recession since the Great Depression right at their peak earning years, and now they're being pushed out early because they're too expensive and not tech savvy enough. Here's the other thing that makes this scary. This isn't a boomer problem. This is going to happen to every generation. Gen X is next, then millennials, then Gen Z. Because the forces at work here aren't about age, they're about incentives. Companies will always choose cheaper labor if the quality is close enough. Technology will always automate what it can. The job market will always prefer younger workers because they're perceived as more malleable and cost less. The music stops eventually for everyone. The only question is whether you have a chair when it does. So what do? I'm going to give you 3 things, and none of them are feel-good nonsense. First, build your retirement before you need it. Not when you're 55, not when you're 50, now. Because retirement isn't always voluntary. Sometimes it's forced on you before you're ready. Max out whatever retirement accounts you can. Get out of debt, build a financial cushion. Because when your music stops, you need to already have a place to land. You can't build the landing pad while you're falling. Second, don't rely on the system to take care of you. Social Security was never meant to be your only income. It was supposed to supplement your savings. If you're counting on Social Security alone, you're planning to be poor. And don't assume your job is secure just because you're good at it. Companies don't care about good. They care about cheap and efficient. Build multiple income streams if you can. Have skills that aren't tied to one employer. Make yourself harder to replace. Third, don't dedicate your entire life to your job. This one stings to watch. I've seen people give everything to their companies. Nights, weekends, missed family events, sacrificed health, all because they thought loyalty would be rewarded. Then they get walked out with a cardboard box and 3-month severance. The company moves on in about 48 hours. Build a life outside of work, relationships, hobbies, purpose beyond a paycheck. Because when the job ends, you need something left. The corporate game has an ending. For some people, it's a gentle glide into planned retirement. For a lot of boomers right now, it's an abrupt shove out the door. The music stops, the chair disappears, and you're left figuring out how to survive on $16,000 a year. Companies will always prioritize their bottom line over your well-being. That's not evil. That's just how the system works. Your job is to see the system clearly and prepare accordingly, because nobody else is going to do it for you.